Today we'll be going through a thriller movie titled Stanford Prison Experiment. The Stanford school has just recently gone for a break, so the psychologist teacher, whose name is Philip, decides to experiment. And for the experiment, they begin to print out papers that they need male students, and each would be paid $15 per day. Some people were interested, so they decided to try it out, and an interview section was conducted by some teachers. After the interview, the participants were separated into the role of guards and prisoners. It was a prison experiment that Mr. Philip wishes to carry out. To make it look real, each guard was given a dress in glass. Then the prisoners were arrested like in real crime situations. Each prisoner was made to pull off their shoes, stripped off their clothes, and be deloused before going given the prisoners wear before being taken to their respective cell, and the professors watched through a CCTV camera. At first, the prisoners took it as fun and laughed about the experiment, but then things started getting serious when they noticed that the guards weren't joking with them. Some prisoners tried getting some of their stuff like eyeglasses for convenience, but they were denied access. Because visitation day is in a few days, they all began to write letters to their family and friends, and the letter was submitted to the professors. While going through the letters, Philip noticed that they aren't serious about the status given to them, but then they noticed a person had referred to himself as a prisoner he wrote. The next day, they had a roll call and were addressed by the prisoners, and most of them took it as a play, but only noticed the serious situation they had put themselves into when the guards asked them to call out their name, which is their number, and were very strict in this. Even the professors noticed that Christopher was very good at making the prison experiment real, and minutes later, fear began to engulf the prisoners' hearts after the harsh treatment of a prisoner getting locked in a hole, which represents a lonely and dark small room. The next morning, prisoner 8612 got released from prison, and he was punished with neatly fixing bedding with an exercise of 20 push-ups. After he was done, he was made to redo the bedding 12 times more, and when he was fully exhausted, only then did the guards free him. The period was a stressful one for the prisoners, but it was a fun moment for the guards as they laughed over the power of being able to control the men, but they didn't love the idea, either does he like what they made the men pass through. At night, they didn't allow the men to peacefully rest. Instead, they made carry out strenuous exercises like push-ups. At a point, 819 was done with his, but he was forced to do an extra 20 push-ups, if not the others would continue, till they dropped down feeling dehydrated, so he has no choice but to agree. Later, a fight was issued between 819 and a guard who got very upset and locked him up in the tiny dark hole. Also, he got into a fight with 8612 and angrily hit the prisoner. This action called for the intervention of the professors who were taking turns to watch them, and this act scared the prisoners because it wasn't part of the deal. The same night after eating supper, 5486 then followed the guard's words, so they angrily dragged him to the cell. So the professors immediately called Philip's attention, but he told them not to intervene and that the guards would handle it. Later, the prisoners stopped the guards from entering, so Philip addresses them and told them that they have full control over the prisoners. They're getting stronger because they're beginning to form a bond, so he advised them to break up. To get this done, the guards applied violence and forcibly took their beds, leaving them to sleep on the floor, but none of the prisoners was seriously injured. To further show the prisoners that they're in control, they tied a prisoner's hands to his legs on the floor. Despite all that they did, prisoner 8612 didn't bend to their will, and when the prisoners were gone, he tried breaking out of the prison with the cellmate. They tried all they could, but later got captured back by the guards, who then forcefully pinned their heads to the wall and stripped them off their clothes while they screamed out. 8612 was then locked up in the hole, while the other was left in a cell and he shivered in fear. The other prisoners kept protesting when the guards tried entering the cell, so Christopher released gas on them. They were later brought out and the guards gave them a bucket that they would use for defecating, and 8612 breakout partners kept shivering as he was made to sit naked with a pillow to cover himself. To be released, 8612 kept screaming in the hole, asking to be let out, and at a point he threatened to injure himself, so Philip suggested that he should be brought to the top floor and he was taken by the guards with a carton to cover his face. He told the professors that he has a horrible stomachache, but Jesse screamed at him that it was a flimsy excuse to release a prisoner, so he cried pitifully and told him that he was tired of the guards' maltreatment, so Philip lied that he would tell the guards to go easy on him. When 8612 go back to his cellmate, he informed them that they weren't going to be released, and then screamed out that they should stop messing with his head because it was more of a horrible place than an experiment, so the professors were forced to release him. And when Philip found out about his release, he was very upset with the professors and he spoke his mind angrily. Day 3, the visitation day. A lot of friends and families came over and each prisoner chatted happily, but then some parents weren't pleased with the condition. They met their children and a parent made complaint to Philip and he gave them a fake reassuring comment and smile. On day 4, the prisoners weren't so pleased with the way things were happening and their height. While engulfed in fear and frustration, prisoner 819 began acting out of control. Later in the day, a priest came over and followed the experiment rule of acting as if everything was real. Then he spoke to each prisoner. When it was 819's turn, the boy looked lost when the man began asking him for a lawyer that would stand in for his case. So then he completely broke down and asked to visit his parent or doctor, but Philip managed to calm him down. His limit completely gets stretched when the prisoners began saying that he had done a bad thing as ordered by the guards. So the poor boy began shivering in fear, but Philip helped him to remain calm again by assuring him that he isn't a prisoner. Later, Phil's girlfriend, Christiana, came around and was warmly received by her boyfriend. She also told them that she would like to watch the experiment with them, and Philip was very happy because she was in support of his experiment. In replacement of 8612, a new guy named 416 was brought in, and when he saw the food that he was served, he didn't eat the meal even when forced by the guards to eat the meal. Having provoked the guards, the sausage was thrown on the floor and he was locked in the dark hole only to be released after eating the sausage. Like a prison activity, parole would soon be done, so each prisoner gave a reason on why they should be released and what they learned so far. When it was 1037 time, he spoke nicely and gave a reason that he would like to celebrate his 23rd birthday with his friends and family. Then Jesse intervened, having had a real-life experience in the prison. He strictly spoke to the man, who then began crying. And when he was done, Christiana asked him if he was willing to forego the money earned so far for his release, and he said yes. His response confirms the young lady's suspicion that the experiment was more of a terror for the prisoners. After discussing with the prisoners, Jesse broke down sad because he saw what he has gone through in the prison being implemented on the young boys. Suddenly, he had a change of heart and he walked out of their midst. Philip tried to speak to him, but then he said he can't go through this any longer and pleaded to Phil that prisoner 1037 should be released. The professor couldn't believe that he saw the experiment as fun before and sadly walked out. Christiana went to the prison cell and happened to witness the maltreatment implemented on the prisoners, and she was greatly sad. Philip tried speaking to her that the idea was very awesome, but then she reminded him that the boys aren't prisoners, but just young boys that had never committed an offense in their lives, and the experiment is making them all suffer and pass through serious emotional breakdown. But still, Philip didn't follow her advice. To confirm what everyone was advising him about, he keenly watched a video of what was happening, and then he saw the way the prisoners looked so sad. Some were forcefully made to act like lesbians, and at points, the guards made some bend over and had the others try hump them. They tried all of the degrading acts. Christopher noticed that prisoner 2096 was obedient to all of their words, so he tried to break the man's limits. He told him to use the wrong word at a fellow prisoner, and 2096 refused because it was against his belief and behavior. Because he was adamant about not saying a curse word, Christopher punished the whole prisoners and told them that it was only when 2096 says he was a bastard before they would be allowed to take the days to rest. So the guy was forced to break his walls and said that which he despised. Later, he was made to do push-ups while some prisoners say on his back, and then the boy broke down on the floor, feeling extremely tired and sad. All of this activity, Philip watched in the office. Only then did he realize that all he had done so far had been so detrimental to the guy's state of health. So he hurriedly went to meet them and told them that the experiment is over. The Standard Jail County is dismissed, and the prisoners were very happy that after 6 days, the whole experiment was stopped and they could freely go home. After their release, they all come back and tell of their experience in the prison, and Philip also said that he believes that each prisoner had a valuable experience. Christopher also said that he was carrying out his little experiment, and it surprised him as none of them ever stood up to him for once, but gladly none of them sustained any permanent injury, and they all lived their lives happily. The end. What do you think about this video? Do you think it was wise to have taken out the experiment in the first place? And what do you think about the guards? Kindly comment below and stay tuned to this channel for more interesting movie updates. Stay safe.